Well, good morning. Thank you all for coming and taking some time out of your Saturday to be with us and learn a little bit more about the University College. My name is Ava Elefante, and I'm the readmissions representative. We've got a lecture by our Dean of the University College, Dr. Pearson, talking about criminology. So I'm really excited to hear from her and really excited to have you all with us. So I'll just go ahead and turn the time over.
Great. Thank you so much, Ava. Good morning. I am Dr. Meg Pearson, Dean of the University College at University of West Georgia. The college houses some really exciting degree programs for students. I'm coming to you live this morning from my basement, so please forgive the decor. University College's slogan is "Building the World as You Dream It," because this college is about helping students create the future they desire through exciting, relevant, and career-driven degree programs. A quick introduction to me. I'm an English professor by training, and I've taught just about every first or second year English and writing course on this campus, and I am happy to talk about any of them if you have questions. My experience means I'm a leader and an administrator who has taught and continues to teach many students on this campus, which means I lead a college dedicated to improving student classroom experiences and their academic success. I'm also a Shakespeare professor, which means I can make the scariest old books exciting and relevant. I'm so proud to be dean of this college. It's a relatively new college at West Georgia, and so we've had an extraordinary experience building the values and practices of University College from the ground up. What we believe in here at UC is putting students first, changing the way college works in a way that better serves students and helps their success, and committing to diversity and equity in every place and practice on campus. West Georgia has always been a place where students can have a small school experience at a major regional university. And University College continues that tradition by helping this big university feel just right for students. It's what the folks at NASA refer to as the Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cool. We do this through our academic programs and through our total commitment to the student success programs and resources. We've already had some exciting successes, even in the madness of COVID. Our majors, for example, were key players in registering students and voters for the most recent election and runoffs, and they helped increase student voter participation all over campus. Our college also produced the campus's first Truman Scholar this year, Ms. Rakia Stafford, and we're well on track to producing many more by making the processes that help students apply for these illustrious awards and scholarships far easier. I'd like to say a few things about Truman Scholars because the program rewards a particular kind of student, and perhaps it's a description you can relate to. It's the kind of student we'd like to meet. Here's how Truman Scholars describe themselves. I hope to be a change agent in time, improving the ways that government agencies, nonprofit organizations, or educational institutions serve the public. There are conditions in our society or the environment which trouble me. I want to work in government, education, the nonprofit sector, or the public interest advocacy sector to improve these conditions. I'd like to get a master's degree, a doctorate, or a professional degree. I take the time to go over these details because I like how it describes a person who sees issues and wants to learn how to solve them. That's a big feature of our degree programs in University College and a large part of what we do here for students. I'd love to use my time today to chat about our degrees and discuss what careers they prepare you for. And then I'd like to let you know about the other parts of University College, which are devoted to the success of students in their first 2 years of college. There will be times for questions, and I hope you have many. Our degree programs are housed in the Department of Civic Engagement and Public Service, which houses programs like criminology and political science, and the Center for Interdisciplinary Studies. The Department of Civic Engagement and Public Service, or DCEPS, is named such because so many of our students talk about their desires for their futures using phrases like, I want to help people, or I want to serve my community. And we wanted to signal to them directly that they can go make those dreams a reality here. DCEPS contains degrees in criminology and political science, which means you'll be learning about the justice system in America and the history of the political party, or perhaps building a foundation for a career in law enforcement or even as a local leader, such as a city council person, a mayor, or a senator. The faculty in these programs research topics that are the cutting edge of our conversations today. Areas like sex trafficking, the role of women in politics, political partisanship, and building consensus in local government. These are all things that you can read about in today's paper. The issues that are on the tips of everyone's tongues are the topics you study in DCEPs. The degree programs offer exciting career training via internships at places like the Coweta County District Attorney's Office, Carrollton Police, Carroll County Sheriff's Office, Douglas County Sheriff's Office, Forsyth County Sheriff's Office, the Coweta Judicial Circuit Public Defender's Office, the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice, UWG Campus Police, and the Prevention and Advocacy Resource Center. One of our interns at GBI was assisting investigators in reviewing surveillance video and saw something that no one else had caught, and it led to solving the case. How many students do you know who have solved crimes as an undergraduate? They do it here. Interdisciplinary studies is another place for degrees that will help you build a future. I think of interdisciplinary studies, or IDS, as the place where students can seek answers to some really big and important questions. For example, how can hunters in Georgia impact climate change? To answer that question requires the skills and content of programs ranging from geosciences to political science.
West Georgia.
Welcome to geosciences, to political science, to biology, to anthropology. Similarly, students may wonder, what role does social media play in school shootings? And they can work on finding the answers in a degree using the disciplines of criminology, English, psychology, and sociology. Not only does interdisciplinary studies help you learn different modes of answering questions, it also provides the skills students need to be ready for a rapidly changing workforce, where everyone needs to adapt quickly and be ready for jobs that don't even exist yet. For example, we recently had our first graduate from the Bachelor's of Interdisciplinary Studies film program, Alana de LeBlanc. She studied screenwriting, arts and lens-based media, and other aspects of filmmaking from West Georgia scholars in English creative writing, photography, mass communications, and the Georgia Film Academy. With the film industry continuing to boom in Georgia, West Georgia is where you can earn a degree that gets you on set quickly and effectively. IDS is where all the extraordinary teachers and disciplines on our campus can come together to create a personalized degree unlike any other. Think of the questions you have, and let us help you find the path towards good answers. Faculty from DCEPs are available today, and there's actually a lecture from a fabulous crim faculty member, Dr. Gavin Lee, following my introduction, so make sure and stick around. The rest of University College includes a department dedicated to making the classes you take in your first years of college the most extraordinary and exciting things you've ever done. For example, this past year, students in Ashley Dykes' first year writing courses created marketing materials used by Keep Carroll Beautiful, a local nonprofit, in its environmental education initiatives. Those students gained valuable work experience and helped improve their college level writing in their first year. Our freshman mathematics program just won the University System of Georgia's Regents Momentum Year Award in 2020 for excellence in teaching and curricular innovation. What that means is that you will not find repeats of your high school math courses at West Georgia. You'll find courses that are developed specifically to help you learn better and progress more successfully. They're taught by faculty who have trained to be the best at their jobs. This unit is currently called the Department of General Education, but I want it to have an awesome title to reflect how thrilling these courses are, so if you have ideas, let me know. These courses are taught by our most proven and beloved professors who are ready and waiting to blow your mind with knowledge you could only glimpse in high school. If you have any ideas about a better name, drop me an email. You'll also have the chance to take a first-year seminar when you arrive at West Georgia, and you should absolutely seize that opportunity. First-year seminars are small seminars with you and a major professor on a topic that will make you fall in love with lifelong learning. You can make a real connection with a professor in these small courses, find a mentor, find an ally, and make some friends. Not only are these first-year seminars fun, that's an actual word used by actual students, students who take first-year seminar are statistically more likely to successfully graduate from college. I'm planning a seminar right now that talks about comic book movies and television programs and how they offer us a new way to adapt to new worlds and new circumstances, kind of like college. So we've got real topics that are fascinating and exciting, and they're in small classes, so you can grab one and do really well. The Department of Student Success is another place in University College that you should get to know very, very well. Here's where you find your advisor, aka your absolute best friend and advocate throughout college. Your advisor helps you figure out the best classes, find the best dorms, get an academic coach if you need one, and meet your peers who can help you with your classes. We also have amazing academic support units like the Writing Center, which can help you turn your first English paper into a work of gleaming beauty, as well as the Center for Academic Success, where student tutors are ready to help you really get organic chemistry, English literature, statistics, and more. Other units, such as multicultural achievement, exist to support first-generation students, students of color, and students from other minoritized populations. Trouble figuring out financial aid? They know who to call. Feeling weird about how to talk to a professor? They can coach you through it. Wanting to meet other people who are interested in the same stuff as you? They've got the hookup. You can meet all these amazing helpers from University College next time you're on campus, and we can get you in touch before then if you like. You're also always welcome to come to me with questions. The Dean's Office of University College, it's on the 3rd floor of the Technology Learning Center, TLC is what we call it, the TLC building, is always ready to talk to students, help out with any problems, and get you in touch with the right people to solve any issues. You can find my contact information in my profile, I believe, on the software we're using today, but my email is megp, MEGP, @westga.edu. And I am at your service, and I'm excited to answer any questions you might have, talk about any topics that might not be related to University College, but are about your first year here, anything I can do to help. So if you have questions, I'm happy to be here for a few more minutes to chat about them. And thanks for coming.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pearson. Do we have any questions? If anybody would feel free to bring them into the chat. We'd be glad to, she'd be glad to speak with you about them.
Because there are a lot of questions you should have about college.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if we don't have any questions yet, we can turn the time over to Gavin for the criminology lecture.
Absolutely. That would be amazing.
Great. If you'd like to go ahead, Gavin, that would be excellent.
Dr. Gavin Lee, everybody.
Well, good morning, Ava. Good morning, Dean Pearson. It is very, very nice to see you both on this Saturday. I will warn you that one of my cats is on the prowl, so I sincerely hope that he won't want to try and make a star appearance. You know. So how are you all doing? You doing all right? My name's Dr. Gavin Lee. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Criminology, and I was just going to ask you, Ava, and Dean Pearson, as I'm scheduled to start at 10:30, do you want me to just be here now and just wait around, or do you want, just in case somebody thinks I'll attend that lecture at 10:30? What do you think, Ava? Can you see my point?
I understand, yes.
I'll do whatever you want.
No, whatever's good for you, whatever's beneficial for you, I'm fine with.
All right, well, Ava, as it's just Scott here, as you know, as one of our guests today, how about, if it's okay, is we give folk another 10 minutes to join, and then so they're there at the start of the lecture if they want to come and join. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely, that would be completely fine with me.
Great.
That sounds great.
Dean Pearson.
Yes.
Great. And Scott.
That sounds awesome.
Scott, the most important person in the Zoom room. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's a good idea, I think.
Okay, wonderful, Scott. Okay, all right. Well, I will then start my lecture at 10:30. But Scott, are you a prospective student?
I'm listening in with a prospective student. I'm his father.
Oh, hello, Mr. You're Mr.
I'm Madrid. Yeah, Scott Madrid.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you
Yeah.
very much for coming. It's I've been doing these things for well, quite a long time. For some reason, they wheel me out and have done for about 7 years on preview days, and I like to do them very much. And one of the things I really love doing is meeting the parents, because a lot of the parents have questions too. In fact, I went to one of these earlier in the year because my son has just been accepted to the University of West Georgia and will be coming here in August to study English. So I definitely believe this is the best university around because I'm sending my son here. So it's quite exciting, and it was interesting to be on the parent side of things, looking around and trying to find more information. The great thing about this college, the University College, which is a new college, is it does house, as Dean Pearson may have told you, general education, and in that, let me just text this to Dean Pearson. You'll have all sorts of things like English, intro to anthropology, political science. Welcome, Daviona. My lecture will be starting in, let's have a look, in about 9 minutes. But it also, so your basic general education classes are housed in the University College, which is the college that I'm in. And as I said, English, there'll be creative writing if you want to do it, introduction to political science, introduction to anthropology, introduction to sociology, chemistry, physics, biology, they're subjects with labs. I know my son's doing biology, but everyone can obviously choose whatever one they want. But it's an exciting time. We are hopefully going to be, we're planning on being full steam ahead with respect to the pandemic. So, we hope for this craziness will be finished by August. And that is what I am hoping too, because being in front of the class, being in front of students is absolutely what I do this job for. It's the only reason I do this job. And so it is, I'm really, really hoping, and I'm pretty sure we can, everything's looking good, to have a normal rollout. And again, keep getting back to my son, but it reflects to other students. I want him to have a normal student experience, face-to-face, living in a dorm, and being able to have the normal college life rather than this bizarre situation we had last year, which I think we're all looking forward to coming out of. I don't know. Are you guys looking forward to coming out of this odd period?
No, I am.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
I know, I can't wait. It's weird because it's the first time that I've got family in England, as you can guess by my accent. I've got family in India, and it's the first time in my life where this is affecting everyone in the darned world, and it's just really weird. I'm phoning 10.5-hour time zones away, and my uncle's still dealing with the same problems that we are, and so it's kind of a very odd time. I just need to be back in the classroom and be back with my students, because it's as I said, that's the best part of the job. Daviona, hi, I'm Dr. Lee. Are you around there? Okay. Well, Scott, Mr. Madrid, what's your son or daughter's name?
Hey, sorry, I stepped away to get a cup of coffee.
No problem. I'm drinking a cup of tea, but you'd expect that as an Englishman, no?
I kind of imagined that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my son is also Scott. His name is Mac, and so he's actually, it's a little early for him. He'll be a senior next year, but we're sort of starting to look at colleges. We live in Atlanta, and I've always been impressed with West Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I used to recruit out of West Georgia back in the days. When I worked at Wells Fargo, we used to hire a lot of graduates, and so I always was impressed with the students there.
Well, thank you.
So when I had the opportunity, I wanted to introduce him, at least get on some lectures and get him familiar with some of them. And unfortunately, he had to step away, but we're gonna for work. But he'll be back in about an hour. So
okay, yeah, that's no problem at all. It's, as I said, it was interesting being on the other side of this thing. We've got wonderful ambassadors like Ava. We've got wonderful and energetic people like Dean Pearson. Hopefully you could sense Dean Pearson's energy and love for the University College. It's a pleasure to work for her. And she's always coming up with new ideas. And normally when a boss comes up with new ideas, you think, but when Dean Pearson comes up with a good idea, I think, you know what, that's actually a pretty good idea, because it comes out of a sort of love for the University College, and an idea of how we can consistently improve on making this a better experience for students.
Yeah, she's super impressive. Yeah, I was really impressed. Yeah, I didn't realize this was such a small setting. I figured it'd be lots of folks on there, and so she did a great job. Just with, I think it was just me. I don't know who else was. So, but she was super impressive, and it's very interesting that she's focused a lot on the Georgia film industry, because I mean it's continuing to growing, and that's interesting. That you guys are also doing a lot around that. The programs you have around that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think more Hollywood, now I may have been misled, but my understanding was more Hollywood blockbusters were filmed in Georgia, not last year because we had the weirdness, but the year before last, and they were made in Hollywood. We've got
all those big Marvel movies, and a lot of the Netflix series, a lot of them, or most of them, are being filmed right here. It's wild to think about. So,
and what's good is, when we get one huge industry coming in, then that means more people, and then you get more restaurants, and you get more other industries that need to come into Georgia. And I think that's especially in the Atlanta area and around here too, and that's just can do nothing but be good for the state. I'm sure other states are really envious, thinking, "Oh, hang on, California's moved its industry to Georgia, and it hasn't moved here." So there you go, North Carolina, Virginia, and Wyoming. We've got you. I think. I don't know why I picked those states, I must admit, but no idea why I picked those states, because I love both those states. Most years I go to Asheville.
Yeah.
Because the rest
all those states have like one nice place. I'm just kidding. Actually, North Carolina has the beaches.
I love Asheville. I'm just trying to think in Wyoming.
Jackson, Wyoming is great.
Jackson Hole, that's it. That's it. Yeah, it's lovely out there. That's lovely out there. Well, we got a couple of minutes. Before we start. As I said, this is odd. I wish we were in a classroom. Normally, we'll meet in like the Ava, have you ever done one in a normal environment, whatever normal is? And you see, the students and the parents would come, and we'd all go off into like political science and so whatever your major would be, and then you'd attend a lecture of your choice. So this is it's very interesting. For a start, the number of people. Scott, you might be an audience of one.
Yeah, I mean, and if I'm an audience of one, I mean, I don't mind rescheduling when you have more, since it's not such an urgent thing for me. I just was really interested, I'm curious. So, but I'm not. It's not like it's an urgent thing today. I've heard so much already.
So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and do it. However, if you would like, this recording should be available. I don't know. No, I don't know. I'm not so sure it will be. But
yes, Dr. Lee, the recording will be available. We're recording all the sessions that are going on today for preview days. So if there's other ones that you're interested in as well, you can take a look at those after the preview day. So
Ava,
we've got it all there for you.
Great.
Thank you, Ava. As long as you're sure about that, then that's fantastic. Thank you very much for letting me know, because I didn't think it was being recorded. And so, Scott, if you want to watch the video recording wise, and then if there are any questions, let me know, that would be absolutely fine. No problem at all, sir. My feelings will not be hurt.
Well, I'm gonna stay. I'm in it for the long haul. So, but it is good to know that it's recorded. I was hoping they were recorded because I want to share them. So, but I like listening to you, Dr. Lee. So as long as you'll have me as a guest, I'll be here.
I will be happy to have you as a guest. I'm happy, and we're at 10:30 now. Thank you, Scott. We're at 10:30 now, and we have Daviona Green. Is that right, Daviona?
Yes, sir, it is.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I've got my cup of tea, Daviona, so I'm absolutely fine. And it's my third one of the day. That's how British I am. But I have been up since 5:30, so there we go. All right, well, what I want to talk about today is the death penalty, and not the sort of, that's one of my areas of study. I largely study criminological theory, which a theory not being a guesswork of what crime is, but various explanations of why crime happens. As we know, there are economic reasons, biological reasons, sociological reasons, political reasons, all sorts of reasons. So I study that. I study serial murder, and I study capital punishment, not just in the United States, but around the world. And how I teach it is not a pro or a con. It's not a sort of, and I'm not putting it down, but not a 10th grade debate class kind of thing. What I do is just present scientific facts and let the students make up their own position. In fact, a lot of the time, my paper in capital punishment will be usable capital punishment, yes or no. Doesn't matter what you think, as long as you can back it up with science rather than saying, I just think. And so that's how I do it. And so, well, let's start. Well, that's where to begin with capital punishment. Well, it's been around for a long time. Solon, the lawgiver of ancient Greece, writes about it. And in some places, capital punishment was exercised in a very, very strange manner, or series of manners. Being pushed off a cliff was one of them. I hope the cliff was very high. That was back about 2,000 years ago. Being boiled in oil. Now, that's not being dropped into hot oil. That's being stuck in some oil and then slowly brought to temperature like some kind of lobster, right? That's one method that they used to do. They also used to press people. What pressing people was you put someone in imagine an outdoor swimming pool, and you put a block of wood on top of it, on top of the individual, and then drop rocks on it so the person is slowly squished to death. This was used quite a bit, and in fact, in 1692, does anybody want to have a shot at what happened in 1692 with respect to the death penalty and a potential mass execution in the United States, in Massachusetts? Well, it was the Salem witch trials, and 12 young ladies and one man called Giles Corrin, they were executed for being witches. Excuse me, there's somebody at the door. That's okay, we got it. Sorry about that. One of the hazards of working from home, right? There were 12 young ladies and one gentleman called Giles Corrin. And contrary to popular belief, the young ladies were hanged, not burnt at the stake. And the gentleman, Giles Corrin, was pressed to death. So even in famous trials, they were using these sorts of methods. In the United States, we had the colonial era first, before the United States became the United States. We were here, and for some reason, which is what the Brits used to do, they rudely turned up and refused to leave. But the first execution under colonial times was in 1608. And that was a Captain George Kendall. And he was executed by the British for spying for Spain, espionage. That was the first time anyone had been executed under colonial powers. Again, that's interesting, right? You wouldn't think someone would be executed in 1608 using a gun, because they weren't that accurate back then. You didn't even have rifling, you just had ball and powder. But that was the first execution. And since then, in the United States, roughly how many executions, any of you, and Ava, you can join in, please, in this one. How many executions up until today do you think we've had in the United States since Captain George Kendall in 1608?
I don't know. Probably several thousand, I would imagine at least. I'm not real sure.
Absolutely. We're approaching 20,000. How do we know this? Well, a gentleman from Alabama, who is sadly no longer with us, his name's Watt Espy. He thought, you know what, I'm going to find out this dratted number. And went around, I think he must have been independently wealthy, because he went around the country getting up into basements, getting down into basements, getting up into attics, and going through every single court record he could find, looking for records of executions. This is one of the most, and I thought I did research. This is one of the most thorough pieces of research I've ever seen. It was amazing, and actually his database is, as you can imagine, quite big, and I used it quite a lot in my research, and it's certainly a work of art. And so that's how we know, all the way from Captain George Kendall right up until now. Well, in the United States right now, there are currently potentially 5 methods by which one could be executed. Does anybody know what they are?
Isn't it lethal injection and
Absolutely, Diana. Just on lethal injection, that's the most commonly used one, and it is the primary method of executions for all the states that employ the death penalty. Anything else? What next?
I'm not sure. Do they still have? Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. Do they still have the electric chair? Or
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They do, Scott, in some states, because there's a controversy over the lethal injection and trouble getting hold of the drugs and things like that, they do. They still have the electric chair as an available possibility. Now, they have used it, actually. I believe they used it last year. Tennessee still uses it and has used it quite recently. What else, anyone?
Can they choose firing squad or not? Is that I read some random article about that.
You're absolutely right. In Utah, provided that you committed a crime before a certain year, then the firing squad can indeed be chosen. I don't know whether that time's up, but it's certainly on the books for several states. In fact, the last firing squad execution was, I believe, well, it was certainly I think it was 2010, Ronnie Lee Gardner. He chose the firing squad. So we think all the way back from Captain George Kendall to 2010. So I wonder if they knew that the firing squad would still be going on. Absolutely, we got those 3 as potentials. What else?
Maybe hanging, perhaps.
Absolutely. In some states, it is still there as an option. Hasn't been done for a very long time. Last time it was done was in the 1990s in the state of Washington. But still quite recently, is it not? That was, that's still available. And one other thing which might be making a comeback, so to speak. Well, it's the gas chamber. The gas chamber, either using hydrogen cyanide as a gas, or, believe it or not, nitrogen. Now, nitrogen is about 80% of the air around us, right? We breathe it in, we breathe it out, we don't use it. But if you put in too much nitrogen, the idea is you simply fall asleep, which doesn't happen with the lethal injection because it's so prone to errors. In fact, there's a great book called Gruesome Spectacles by Austin Surratt. And out of all the methods of execution, the lethal injection has the highest mess up rate. Let's go back to hanging a little bit, and back to the historical thing, and back to my home country. I have lived here for 21 years now. So I don't know, it's not my home country, it's where I used to live and my dad lives, really, essentially. But what was the method of execution, do you think, that was used in England until they banned capital punishment in the 1960s?
It probably was hanging, right?
It absolutely was, Scott. It absolutely was. It was hanging. And back in the 17th century, there were over 250 crimes for which you could be hanged. 250 crimes, including pickpocketing, which was interesting because back then executions drew thousands of people, and it was this day out, right? It was like going to a concert nowadays, and everyone would start drinking early, and they would get there early to get a good view. In fact, houses either side, owners of houses either side of the gallows would rent out their rooms to rich people for extortionate rates, so rich people could come and spend an afternoon there and drink and laugh and carouse. And that was hanging. And in fact, these scenes became so unpleasant, and there were fighting breaking out and goodness knows what else, that in the 19th century, the British government said, no more public executions. It's not cool. I don't know whether they used those words back then, but no more public executions. And so they decided to start putting it within the walls of the prison. The last public execution in the United States was in about the 1930s. There are mixed views on what was, but it was either in Missouri, Kentucky, or Mississippi. We think it was Mississippi, but the records aren't very good from back then. So in England, we kept having the death penalty, and it was mandatory for all cases of murder. You had no choice. It was the only penalty that was available for murder. And the judge would put on when he was found guilty, when the individual was found guilty, he'd put on a square piece of black cloth. And he would say, John Smith, Gavin Lee, you have been found guilty of murder, and I sentence you to be taken from here. This is exactly what he would say. Taken from here to the place from whence you came, and there to a place of execution where you are to be hanged by the neck until you are dead. And may the Lord have mercy upon your soul. Now remember, he was wearing a wig as well, and that black cloth. The Brits love high drama, right? They love it. They love a bit of a costume and high drama. And so, but it was like a performative exercise. And so, as I said, up until 1957, it was the only penalty that was available for murder. And in 1957, the Homicide Act came to be. And what did the Homicide Act do? Well, among many things, it allowed the judge to, in in revolting cases of murder, I know that murder is always revolting, but it gave the judge a choice to give either life imprisonment or the death penalty. So for the first time in 1957, you have what they call discretion in capital sentencing. And this, as I said, this showed that people were becoming uneasy with capital punishment. Now, why did we get rid of it? Well, first of all, a lot of people, even in what we call the Conservative Party, started to have doubts about the use of capital punishment. What doubts do you think they had, guys? Any of you?
Well, I would say, what about in the case of somebody that maybe wasn't competent to stand trial, or if you just had those, that might be a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Competence to stand trial. Yes, indeed.
Or just that it was effective as a deterrent for crime, possibly.
Absolutely, Scott. And in fact, most of the decent and recent studies have not shown a deterrent effect. For example, the South executes more people than the North, and yet still has a higher murder rate. So maybe that's not, if you can see what I'm saying, maybe that's not a deterrent. Absolutely. Anything else? Well, there's a chance, and indeed we almost certainly have executed the wrong person. Now, the person that didn't do it, if you put somebody in prison for life and you make a mistake, and you see these things all the time. We've had over 150 people taken off death row because they didn't do it. Factually innocent, DNA showing that they didn't do it. That's a real problem. And so British, we call them MPs, members of parliament, started to express some doubt. And there were three cases where the British people and the British government made them think, well, we may not need to do this anymore. Number one, there was a lady called Ruth Ellis. Now, she was a nightclub hostess, and she shot and killed her boyfriend, who, however, he was abusive. And so they felt that, yes, the lady should be in prison, but she should not be executed. And she was the last lady to be hanged. There was a serial killer called John Christie, and he lived in the same building as a man who, Ava, to your point, wasn't necessarily fit to stand trial. He was, I don't know what the phrase is now, but developmentally challenged. And he actually confessed to murders he hadn't done, to murders that the serial killer had actually done. And guess what? He was hanged. So that's case number two that caused people problems. And he admitted to it because he was developmentally challenged. A little bit of police pressure, and then, you know, he's gone. He's gone. And another case was a fascinating case, and that was the case of Derek Bentley. Now, I want you to paint this picture, or I want to paint a picture of what was happening in your mind here. Two very, they weren't strangers to the police and they weren't strangers to crime, right? There was a guy called Christopher Craig who was 17. And there was a guy called Derek Bentley who was 18. And they were carrying out a commercial burglary. Two policemen came in and one policeman followed them up to the roof. Christopher Craig is holding a gun. And the copper said, and the policeman knew him and said, "Come on, Chris, give me the gun." And Derek Bentley said, "Let him have it, Chris, let him have it." Now, Bentley was hanged. He didn't pull the trigger, but why was he hanged? Well, Christopher Craig was 17 and couldn't be. Derek Bentley was what they call joint enterprise and was 18 and could be. But why do you think there was a problem with this let it have it idea? Anyone?
Kind of a vague statement there, isn't it?
Okay, go on. It is, absolutely. What did Derek Bentley mean? Did he mean, Chris, he's asking you for the gun, let him have it, or like in a John Wayne movie, let him have it, right? And so if it's vague, I would tend to err on the side of caution of not executing somebody. But the judge and even the top government officials refused, what we call the Home Secretary, refused to give him a reprieve. They wanted to show they were tough on crime. And so they all assumed that it meant let him have it in the John Wayne sense, not in the Chris, for goodness sake, give him a gun. And he was hanged. Also, it's interesting to note, by the way, that Derek Bentley had the functional mental age of an 11-year-old. And yet, even though the statement was vague, and he was developmentally challenged, they went ahead and executed him. So those three cases really sort of started to turn the public away from capital punishment, leading up to 1965, where the Brits get rid of capital punishment. And in 1966, guess what happens? Horrible and famous murders happen, and everyone's thinking, drat, I wish we'd kept the death penalty. If one is going to have the death penalty, I'm about to describe to you two people who were sort of ideal candidates for it, as many British people saw at the time. How many of you have heard of two people called Myra Hindley and Ian Brady? All right, well, these two individuals would kidnap children and torture them and then bury their bodies out in the wilderness. and they were both given life imprisonment, having been caught, because we'd got rid of the death penalty the year before. And everybody was up in arms about it, but still capital punishment has not been back in Britain since then. So 1960s, let's move over back stateside to 1972. In 1972, the Supreme Court says, hang on a minute, we're looking at the death penalty. It's randomly applied. You might get it in one place, you might not get it in the other for the exact same crime. Depending on the nature of the victim, you might get it, you might not. Depending on the nature of the gender of the victim, the gender of the murderer, the gender of the race of the murderer, the race of the victim. And they did a study whereby one was 4 times more likely, 4 to 5 times more likely to get the death penalty if your victim was white, rather than the victim being a person of color. And the Supreme Court said, we got a problem here. You can have the death penalty, but you need to get rid of this randomness, right? They described it as arbitrary and capricious. And so they said, if you come back to us having got rid of this randomness, then we will allow you to carry out the death penalty. However, until then, you can't. This resulted in several people being taken off death row and given life imprisonment as an alternative. One individual was a man called Charles Manson. Scott, Ava, do you remember, have you heard of Charles Manson? Yes, Scott?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, irony of all ironies, the fact that they messed up the death penalty. Charles Manson, who had been sentenced to death, perhaps one of the most infamous criminals in the history of the United States. I mean, he's got to be up there with Bonnie and Clyde and John Derrant, all these sorts of guys. I know, Babyface Nelson. So it resulted in a lot of people being released from death row. And in fact, it was the case that described or declared that a death penalty, as it was currently applied, was unconstitutional, was Furman versus Georgia in 1972. Now, remember, the Supreme Court didn't say it's got to go and it stays gone. The Supreme Court said, come back to us with it fixed and we will allow you to do it again. Well, they did, and it was Georgia again. In the case of Gregg versus Georgia in 1976, they said to the Supreme Court, here we are. I think we fixed it. And Supreme Court looked at it and said, yes, you fixed it. And so ever since then, back in 1976, we've had capital punishment in what we call the modern era. And since then, how many executions do you think we've had? And this might be a mean question, but rough idea.
And that was late 60s?
From 1976 to now.
Maybe just a couple hundred since then? Or?
Well, actually, Scott, it's a little bit more, although it is drastically on the decline. We're executing around 20 people a year, all across the state. Texas is normally the leader. Last year, it was the federal government. There was a rush to execute people last year. The federal government hadn't executed anyone since 2003. And then last year, it executed a lot of people over the last 6 months. About 10 people. But to answer my question, since 1976, we've had about 1,500. And 85% of them were in the former states of the Confederacy. So that's including Texas. Texas itself represents just under 1/3 of all executions, but 85% in the South. Now, as you know, in the North, they don't have it very much. And all across the United States, slowly states are dropping it one by one because of things like innocence, and certainly because of things like cost, because it costs so much more to have capital punishment than to sticking somebody in a cell for the rest of their lives. What is changing, though, is the number of executions and the number of death sentences is dramatically decreasing, because as we take these opinion polls, younger people are becoming less in favor of capital punishment. So it's a function of age. Does that surprise anybody?
No,
No, it does. Why do you think that might be?
I think
Ava,
there's
you're a young.
more awareness and education.
Yeah, that might be the case. Ava, you're a young person, because I'm not.
I'm certainly not as young as you might think. I'm really, it's just people's, political, I guess, political shifts in the country is younger people tend to be more liberal and more, I guess, more against the death penalty, I suppose.
That also might be the case. The reason why I asked that question is I really don't have a clue. There are all sorts of, I mean, yes, absolutely, Scott's right, and maybe the education and, young people are having a different mindset, have a different mindset nowadays than they were when, I was a kid. It was sort of, you'd hear the expression, kill them all, let God sort them out, right? You've heard that expression before. In fact, outside some executions in Texas, you have supporters of capital punishment holding up banners like that. And so that's definitely on the decrease. The number of executions is on the decrease, and support's decreasing, as I said, and states are just dropping it all over the place. Virginia, which was one of the leading states for capital punishment since Gregg versus Georgia in 1976, is just about to formally get rid of theirs. And when Virginia gets rid of theirs, you know that other states are soon to follow. What purpose does it serve? Anyone?
Well, I guess the idea of it was just as a deterrent to keep people from, you know, committing, vast crimes. That was the purpose. I don't know what it serves as much today, but.
Well, that's interesting. And I think one of the ideas absolutely was deterrence, but we're still struggling to find a really good study that shows that it does. I mean, you'd have to ask people really to show that it does. How many capital crimes didn't you commit today because you're worried about the death penalty? Well, that's 3. There was that one guy that cut me off. There was someone that sneaked in front of me at Kroger's. It's just, so that's a difficult thing to measure, right? Retribution. It shows, certainly, that society isn't going to put up with a certain kind of behavior, whether one agrees with this or not, right? Certainly, it might be used as to send a message to say, this is what you get if you don't behave. Now, the thing is, for it to be retribution or to show everybody what society is unwilling to put up with, then you're going to have to do it to more than 20 people a year. You see what I mean? So that's one of the reasons. And in fact, if you ask all those people who support capital punishment, why they support the death penalty, the number one reason is retribution. Especially in the situation where a lady or a child is harmed. Much less likely to want the death penalty for someone who commits an armed robbery and the gun goes off and kills the poor teller or the gas station attendant. So that's one of those reasons. I'll tell you what else it does. Incapacitation. If somebody is executed, they sure as heck, sorry, this antivirus thing has just popped up. No, it says it's been completed. Don't worry, my computer's not about to crash. It's certainly, sure as eggs is eggs, as my mother would say. They're not going to be doing it again. That's not a favorite reason for supporters of the death penalty, but it does serve that purpose. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with any of these situations. What I deal with when I talk about capital punishment, just facts. As I said, and I'm not denigrating 10th grade debate class, but this is, when I teach about it, it's not. It's not. There have been some interesting studies done on capital punishment, not just costs or anything else, but studies that really make you think a little bit. And one study I was fortunate enough to be involved with, I was directing a master's student's a thesis. And what we wanted to see whether the attractiveness of the offenders made a difference in whether or not someone got sentenced to death or not, right? And so what this student did was have pictures of ladies who were, some were considered conventionally attractive, some were considered conventionally unattractive. And we asked students, and a lot of them, we got over 1,000 students, so it's a good sample, saying this person was killed, this person killed someone X, Y, or Z. Would you give this person life without parole, or would you give this person the death penalty? What do you think we found? Tell you what we found. Thankfully, it didn't make a difference. Because imagine if we found a difference. How is that constitutional? If we found that attractive people were less likely to be sentenced to death than unattractive people, whatever that means, what would that have done constitutionally? Anyone? Latara or Ava? I don't know how we would have solved that problem. I mean, short of keeping the offender screened, I don't know how we would have solved that problem. Now, what I'm doing next, my wife, Dr. Pisani, also teaches in the criminology department, and with a colleague from Georgia State, what we're going to be doing is a study on what the victim looks like. So this person was murdered, right? Should the offender get life without parole or the death penalty? What do you think we're looking to see what happens there as? What do you think we're looking at, Ava?
I guess whatever, like, I'm sorry, could you repeat that for me? I didn't quite.
So what we're doing is we're having pictures of very attractive people and saying this person was murdered, and not conventionally unattractive people, whatever society says that is, and we're saying person A was killed, what should the offender get? Life without parole or death. Person B was killed, what should the offender get? Life without parole or death. What do you think we're looking for there?
We're looking for if there's that bias between, you know, good-looking people might want to just give them a less severe punishment.
I agree. That's exactly what we're looking for. And in fact, we can see this in the media, can't we? If an attractive young lady goes missing, it's all over the place. Well, people go missing all the time. But if you look like me, this mug is not getting on television, right? A 50-year-old balding guy with some graying beard, I'm not getting on TV. But if an attractive young lady goes missing, then it's all over the place. So we're looking to find that too, which would be yet another problem with the criminal justice system. You know, if it's equal justice under the law, then you can't execute people at a higher rate just because they're attractive. We do know that people are executed at a higher rate if they kill white people. That's just, unfortunately, it's a fact. It's a provable fact. And so we're looking at those various sorts of things. And so I'm looking forward to finishing that study. We're doing it with a colleague from Georgia State. So there are all sorts of things to study. As the death penalty is about to fall off the horizon, I'm gonna have to concentrate then on serial murder, which is what I do too. But I don't do serial murder, sorry. I study serial murder. But that's where we are. There are all sorts of very interesting studies we can do. And when I teach about the death penalty, as I said, it's not a debate. It's always just, let's deal with the science and find out more about it rather than the death penalty we want and the death penalty we have. And there are very big differences. And I love talking about this to my students on, and if you do support the death penalty and then say, right, here are the problems, how would you fix it? Yeah? If you do support it, how would you fix it? And sometimes we have these wonderful conversations. Well, with that, I will throw this open to questions because you've heard me rattle on long enough. Throw this open to questions. If any of you have a question, welcome, Latara. So you come into the room earlier. Hang on, has my video not been on? Has it been on? Oh
it has not. I thought that I thought that was a choice on your part, so I didn't. I apologize.
No way. So now you can see why I wouldn't get on television if I went missing. All right. Oh my goodness, I didn't.
I apologize. I thought that was, you
It's
didn't
not
want.
your fault. It's my fault. I'm technologically rubbish. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Scott, I've only just discovered that my microphone wasn't on. My microphone
No,
was
we could hear
You're-
you. We just couldn't see you.
Could you? Oh well. Well, look. At least I haven't subjected you to staring at me for half an hour. I mean, that's probably a plus. Oh, drat! I do apologise for that. Well, so what I've done is I've got to the end of my lecture. What I wanted was really to throw it open to anyone here to ask me any questions or any questions about anything in the criminology department. Anyone?
You mentioned you see capital punishment. You think that the trend is downward on that as far as even in current environment?
Yes, it really is that. It really is downward. I mean, we only had 18 executions last year. And Scott, what's interesting is if you look at the even the state of Texas, right? They're executing more people every year than they're actually putting on death row. Most death rows are getting smaller. California's has got over 700 people and they don't execute anyone, and yet they're very happy to put more and more people on death row without executing anybody. It seems to me to be a pointless exercise. And if I was in California, I'd be thinking, couldn't you spend my money on something else rather than housing someone on death row when you could just lock them up and put them in a cell for the rest of their lives. It's definitely a downward trend. As I said, we're executing fewer people, we're sentencing fewer people to death, and the number of states that have got this, that are having it, is decreasing all the time.
What are your thoughts on private prisons? I mean, it seems like, do you go into private, discussing the sort of the ethical, the dilemmas with, having corporations own prisons and, that type of thing?
Yeah, it concerns me a little bit because there is an incentive to keep the prison full because each prisoner represents a pot of money for the corporation, and so there might, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but it's just it could lead to problems. I've heard stories of some prisons saying, well, we will build it for you, provided that you promise that you'll keep it 96% of capacity.
Right.
Prison officers sometimes are given shares in the company. And so it's incentivized to maybe keep people in for longer. You have higher instances of prison misconduct. Now, my dissertation was on prison misconduct in Arkansas, but we didn't have, I wasn't looking at any private prisons, but the literature shows, Scott, that there are higher instances of prison violence, assault on inmates, assault on staff in private prisons. And so it does concern me a little bit. And I can't see, I know the stated reasons for the upside. The stated reasons for the upside is that if you leave things to the free market, then it might be run more efficiently. Those economic arguments, I don't know about. I'll leave that for economists. But just from a criminal justice point of view, I remain wholeheartedly unconvinced. And here's the cat. Sorry. No. Sorry. There we go. See, it's probably better that I didn't have the video on. I knew as soon as I turned the video on, the darn cat would show up.
We wanted to see the cat.
But he's very violent. And if I picked him up, if I'd spent less time with him in my hands, I could well have just been come back bleeding and said, terribly sorry, I've got to go to the ER. But I moved him and it was all safe. There's nothing to see here. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything crime related? Anything?
So I don't remember this, but in the late 70s, there was this guy that actually demanded the death penalty in the United States. I think his name was Gary Gilmore or something along those lines.
Yeah. Now he was the first. We talked about the modern era and Gregg versus Georgia in 1976. Well, he was the first execution in the modern era. 1977 in Utah. He was executed by firing squad. His last words were, "Let's do this." We had there have been some other great, interesting last words. One guy, electric chair in Tennessee, a year and a half, 2 years ago, as he was strapped in, they were about to flip the switch. He said, "Let's rock." There have been some we had one gentleman who, before he was about to be put to death in Texas, last words were, "God bless Texas." Thought it was strange, but I digress. What was the original question? I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, I just remember seeing like a special on TV about how, there's all this stuff about the against the death penalty, and then all of a sudden this guy's demanding it, and it just kind of caused a big kerfluffle for the whole country.
He demanded it, and then he didn't want it, and then he demanded it. And there's a book that Norman Mailer wrote, you've heard of Norman Mailer?
Yeah.
And it's about that big. Okay, I exaggerate, but it's about 800 pages long, called The Executioner's Song. And that's Norman Mailer's writing about the Gary Gilmore execution. And you think, God, 800 pages about one execution? Well, it's a gripping read, I tell you, still at 800 pages. So yes, it did cause a huge kerfuffle. It was so famous that one of America's greatest ever novelists decided to throw down 800 pages on it. Where did you hear about that, Ava?
Oh, actually, my parents had that book in their house, and I used to open it up and read it when I was a kid, and I was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, fun reading for a kid, eh? That's tremendous, yeah. But it's a very, very good book. Very good book. Anyone got any other questions or points or? I am here. And in the words of, I don't know, George Carlin, I'm here all week, although I'm not.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. That was a fascinating lecture. Appreciate that.
Oh, thank
you so much.
Thank you very much. Now,
that was great.
My email address, if any of you have any other questions where you think, oh, drat, I wish I'd asked him that, then my email address is Gavin, Gavin, L for Lee, at westga.edu. And I'm happy to follow up on anything or any other questions you've got about anything. Then I'll either know the answer, or I will know somebody who does know the answer. And Ava as well, I'm sure will be able to help you too. But you need me for anything, please reach out. I can't wait to see you guys, Scott, hopefully your son on campus, maybe next year or the year after next. But I'm very glad that my son is going to be here, and so I'm not just talking the talk. In other words, right? I'm sending my son here because I believe it's the best university for him. And so, and by the way, I'll stress this: I don't get a discount, so I'm paying the same full rate. So don't just think, oh, he's doing that, he gets a discount. To the best of my knowledge, I don't get one.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it's wonderful to meet you all. Thank you for hearing me rattle on. I apologize for not turning the darn camera on. Oh, that's great. Preview day. So Ava, do you take people then to the next thing? What's the next thing?
Well, if they're interested in looking at some of the other events or anything like that, they can just log in. I sent the link in the chat, and still use their same login to look at the other tiles and the other events that have gone on today. And again, like I said, we're recording all the sessions. So if anybody missed out and wants to come on and take a look and see what we've got to offer this Saturday morning, they're certainly able to do that. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Lee, for your time. It was a fascinating lecture, and I really enjoyed it. And I know that everybody on the call did as well. So
That's
again,
wonderful.
yes.
I do apologize so much.
No, I apologize for not stopping, but I thought, well, maybe there's something going on. And I was like, I don't want to.
Yeah, like a darn cat probably, but no.
Yes, sir.
One of those things that much worse things could possibly happen in the world, but yeah. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure meeting you all. Ava, thanks for the work that you do. Latara, I hope to see you very soon. And you have a wonderful weekend, the remainder of it, okay? See you guys. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.